Good evening, I'm Sarah Faris-Glove with the main news making headlines around the world. A UN official says the UN honouring of His Highness the Emir as a humanitarian leader is in recognition of Kuwait's extraordinary partnerships with the organization. The US President says the core coalition is ready to join the US military in action against militants in Iraq. Ukrainian and Russian presidents agree that a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine is largely holding. And the UN sent out a rescue call for international action on battling the Ebola virus as the death toll passes 2,000. His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, sent a cable of congratulations to His Majesty the King of Swaziland, Mswati III, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, sent a cable of congratulations to His Majesty the King of Swaziland, Mswati III, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness Sheikh Jabir al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable of congratulations. The First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Sabah al-Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah, and his accompanying delegation arrived in the Egyptian capital Cairo to attend the 142nd Arab League Foreign Ministerial Meeting due to be held on the 7th and 8th of September. The United Nations Under-Secretary for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, Baroness Valerie Amos, said that the State of Kuwait has become an extraordinary partner to the United Nations and other international organizations in supporting global humanitarian efforts. Amos said the upcoming UN honoring of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah as a humanitarian leader and naming Kuwait a global humanitarian center comes in recognition, appreciation, and gratitude for His Highness's role. Baroness Amos recalled Kuwait's efforts over the last 5 years, particularly in hosting 2 major regional donors conferences for Syria that succeeded in raising millions of US dollars for aiding Syrian refugees and internally displaced. Amos also applauded Kuwait's support in pushing the issues of Iraq, Gaza, and Syria, keeping them high on the global agenda, seeking solutions to the humanitarian consequences of regional conflicts, and boosting efforts for political resolves. The senior UN official also seized the chance to express gratitude to Kuwait for the latest $5 million US donation to the World Health Organization, or the WHO, in order to tackle the outbreak of the Ebola virus. Over to neighboring Iraq, Baghdad welcomed US President Barack Obama's plan for an international coalition against militants as a strong message of support after repeatedly calling for aid against the militants. Obama outlined a plan on Friday for a broad coalition to defeat the militant groups, which led an offensive that overran chunks of 5 Iraqi provinces in June and also holds significant territory in neighboring Syria. Speaking at a NATO summit in Wales, Obama said that a core coalition had been formed to tackle the threat. International concern has been building for some time over militants, which have carried out numerous atrocities, including killings, kidnappings, and attacks on minorities in areas it controls in both Iraq and Syria. The Palestinian movement, Hamas in Gaza, continues to renew its clear objections of what Israelis are asking for in order to ease the siege and reach a lasting agreement. In the midst of this, the unity between Palestinian factions itself is still in danger, which for many could affect the reconstruction process. More in the following report from our correspondent in Gaza, Majd Al-Wahidi.
Long-term truce with Palestinians is the demilitarization of Gaza. But Ismail Haniyeh, a leader in Hamas, said that his movement will not accept any Israeli, regional or international calls for disarmament. He also added that the top priorities are ending Israel's blockade and strengthening national unity. But for observers, these priorities are in a circle of real challenges, as the dispute between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority over fundamental issues is still a reality.
The unity between Palestinian factions and the Palestinian Authority is in danger. We have seen in the past few days statements of conflict between Hamas and Fatah, and I think we're going to see more statements could be by different sides. The political situation is not as we could imagine. The Palestinian Unity government is not functioning in Gaza Strip as in the West Bank. Palestinian political system is still suffering badly and damaged by the clashes between Hamas and Fatah and the division between them.
Hamas in Gaza accuses the Palestinian National Consensus government and its prime minister of negligence. They urge the government to fulfill its duties, especially the reconstruction of buildings destroyed by Israeli forces. For ordinary people here, all they need is a clear, lasting solution that could rebuild what is left after a destructive, bloody war has caused unbearable suffering.
كنا ساكنين في بيوتنا.
We were living normal inside our homes with safety. Today we are displaced and homeless, and we live like guests inside our homeland. We want our homes to be reconstructed. We demand both Fatah and Hamas to consider our losses and help us.
كل متضرر كل أصاب.
All has been damaged by this war. We hope they accelerate the process and give us a realistic solution, because we suffered so much in the war and now we live on nothing.
Experts revealed that an estimated $7 billion are needed to rebuild Gaza. But with a present state of siege and an internal split looming, the rubble of destruction will take a long time to be removed, as the hopes of security and stability seem far away than ever. Who should supervise the process of Gaza's reconstruction? Hamas movement, the United Nations, or the Government of National Unity? According to a recent survey, 55% of Gaza's population would choose the Government of National Unity to supervise the process. Majdo Hadi, Kuwait TV, Gaza.
From the Sahara Golf Club, this is Sarah Club.
From the Radisson Blue, I'm Gilma Jabouri.
From the Sahel Club, this is Salim Kandiri.
From the Scientific Center, this is Heba Abdurrahman.
I'm Badriya Saleh, reporting for the Week in 30 Minutes.
At least 25 Syrian civilians were killed and several others injured in air raids by government warplanes on a number of sites in Raqqa province, northeastern Syria. Meanwhile, the United States expressed concern that Syria's government might be harboring undeclared chemical weapons hidden from the internationally led operation to purge them over the past year. Syria's government agreed last September to renounce chemical weapons, destroy its stockpile, and join the treaty that bans their use under an agreement brokered by Russia and the US. That deal averted the Obama administration's threat to bomb Syrian military sites in reaction to an attack last year with the nerve agent sarin near Damascus. The US and its allies said the attack killed hundreds of civilians and could have been carried out only by Syrian forces though President Bashar al-Assad and his allies said rebels were responsible. Somalia's government warned that the country's Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab rebels were planning a wave of retaliatory strikes after it was confirmed their leader, Ahmed Abdi Godani, was killed earlier this week in a US airstrike. There was no immediate comment from the group, which has refused to confirm or deny reports of Godani's death. More details in the following report by Dina Nasser.
Somalia is on alert for retaliatory attacks by the Al-Shabaab terrorist group after the group's leader Ahmed Abdi Godane was killed in a US airstrike earlier this week. After 4 days of monitoring cell phone traffic, questioning Somali officials on the ground, and poring over reports from both American and British intelligence agencies, the Pentagon announced that American airstrikes against the Al-Qaeda-linked militant network in Somalia had succeeded in killing the group leader, who is one of the most wanted men in Africa. In a statement, the White House said that Godane's death was a major blow to Al-Qaeda's network, calling it a major symbolic and operational loss to the largest Al-Qaeda affiliate in Africa. According to sources, at least 3 strikes hit a convoy of Al-Shabaab vehicles in southern Somalia last Monday, killing 6 fighters. The air raid came days after African Union troops and Somali government forces launched Operation Indian Ocean, a major offensive aimed at seizing key ports from Al-Shabaab and cutting off one of their key sources of revenue. AU forces were targeting the group on several fronts, with Ugandan troops leading the offensives against the main port of Barawi, south of the capital Mogadishu. Godane, whose death could now lead to an internal power struggle, has been fighting to overthrow the war-torn country's internationally backed government, carrying out a wave of bombings and assassinations. Also known as Mukhtar Abu Zubair, Godane seized world attention a year ago with the Westgate Mall attack in Nairobi that left at least 67 people dead. He warned Kenya that it would suffer further atrocities unless it withdrew its troops from the AU force in Somalia. He also claimed responsibility for the July 2010 bombings in the Ugandan capital Kampala that killed 74 people. However, there was no immediate comment from the group, which has refused to confirm or deny reports of Godane's death. Meanwhile, Somalia's government said that security forces are ready to counter the retaliatory attacks and called on people to help their forces in standing against the violent acts. Security agencies have obtained information indicating that Al-Shabaab is now planning to carry out desperate attacks against medical facilities, education centres and other government facilities.
Hundreds of thousands of people have rallied in Yemen's capital Sana'a in support of the government as a large number of its opponents held a counter-demonstration vowing to intensify their protests until the cabinet resigns. Supporters of the government mobilized in western Sana'a in one of the largest crowds to convene since the standoff first appeared. Meanwhile, opponents known as Houthis called for further action against the government, who they accuse of corruption and demanding a resignation. The Houthis, who have been camped inside and outside Sana'a for weeks, have dismissed the government's 30% cut in the fuel price hike and pressed demands for their resignation. Russia has vowed to respond if the European Union imposes new sanctions over the current crisis in Ukraine. The EU says the sanctions, targeting more Russian individuals, will come in on Monday, but could be later suspended if Russia withdraws troops from eastern Ukraine and observes the truce set into place yesterday. Dina Nasser has more on this story in this report.
United Nations Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon hailed the signing of a breakthrough ceasefire yesterday between Ukraine's government and the local armed forces in the east of the country. Ban urged related parties to work towards an effective implementation and called on the international community to support the agreement. In a statement read out by UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric, Ban said the recent discussions between the Ukrainian and Russian presidents have encouraged the development.
The Secretary-General stresses that credible and comprehensive monitoring and verification are essential elements for successful implementation of the ceasefire and the peace plan. He encourages all who committed to the agreement to display goodwill and to take concrete steps towards urgent, full, and effective implementation. He calls on the entire international community to rally behind these agreements to serve the interests of a sustainable peace based on a solution that leads to the full respect of Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty.
The truce deal was signed in the Belarusian capital of Minsk, where envoys from the two warring sides, as well as Russia and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, were holding talks for a possible political settlement of the Ukraine crisis. The ceasefire largely held back fighting today, but appeared fragile as both sides of the conflict claimed the others had violated the agreement. The negotiators also agreed on the withdrawal of all heavy weaponry, the release of all prisoners, and the delivery of humanitarian aid to the devastated cities in eastern Ukraine. Colonel Andrei Lysenko, spokesman for Ukraine's National Security Council, said that Ukraine's aim was to release all captured men, adding that Kiev was ready to accept conditions from separatists which are not breaking national and international laws. Lysenko also said that rebels had fired at Ukrainian forces on 10 occasions after the ceasefire was to take effect, but all the incidents he detailed were last night. Earlier today, the mayor's office in Donetsk said there had been no reports of shooting or shelling there, although some shelling had been heard late yesterday afternoon.
The United Nations sent out a rescue call for international action on battling the Ebola virus as the death toll from the outbreak surpassed 2,000. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said that $600 million was urgently needed for supplies to combat Ebola in West Africa. The UN chief again urged airlines and shipping countries to lift their bans on flights and port visits so doctors, nurses, beds, medical equipment and supplies could reach those in need. Meanwhile, Sierra Leone, one of the countries worst hit by West Africa's Ebola outbreak, has announced today a 3-day lockdown to try to tackle the disease. Heavy monsoon rains and flash floods have killed 110 people and injured 148 across Pakistan, while nearly 100 have died in Indian-administered Kashmir, as officials warn of more rain in coming days. Troops and other emergency personnel were deployed in both countries to help with relief operations, with boats and helicopters being used to reach stranded people. Many key roads and the lone highway linking the Kashmir region to the Indian plains was also closed, communication lines and railway services disrupted, while several bridges were washed away. Pakistan has been swept by deadly monsoon floods for the last 4 years. In 2013, 178 people were killed and around 1.5 million affected by flooding around the country. Search and rescue teams will resume efforts today to find the wreckage of a small U.S. private aircraft that crashed in the waters off Jamaica on Friday. No wreckage has been located, but search and rescue teams were scouring the waters for any survivors. The Jamaican Defense Force said the plane went down about 14 miles or 22 kilometers northeast of Port Antonio, as contact with the plane was lost a short time later. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration said it had not confirmed the number of people aboard. As part of the 9th Summer Cultural Festival, the National Council for Culture, Arts and Letters, or the NCCAL, screened a variety of non-commercial films at Cinescape Leila Gallery, which included a number of popular Lebanese films, including the comedy film Taxi and Every Day is Eid. The 9th Summer Cultural Festival also featured an array of cultural activities, including photography exhibitions, live dance performances, acting, art discussions, as well as other fun and engaging activities. Our reporter Ghanwa Jabouri was at Cinescape Leila and spoke to a number of audience members to get their reaction on the films that were screened.
The 9th Summer Cultural Festival, organised by the National Council for Culture, Arts and Letters, has highly impressed and entertained individuals due to its resonating ability to provide a platform that enhances one's cultural knowledge, educational knowledge, and expose them to a mosaic of aspects in the arts and literature arena.
I think one of the best Arabic scenes are the Lebanese ones so far. You have the Egyptians, but I trust in the Lebanese movies, and I feel that either the directors or the producers are investing a lot of time and money on this particular things right now. They're investing more money in the Western movies, but nowadays I think the Arabic movies are they're well aware of the importance of this art and they're investing in it a lot. So I think you have lots of great movies showing right now you didn't see before. You have in the artistic way, you have the production, you have the direction, everything. And I know as a study in Lebanon now, it's more and more producers and directors just studying this field because they have faith in it, they have ideas, they have lots of potentials that could actually lead somewhere. And I feel that it's going somewhere soon, hopefully.
I think it's full of comedy. The main thing of Lebanese movies is it's comedy. That's what they really focus about.
As part of the festival, a number of Lebanese films were screened at Cinescape, bringing the audiences films that are not only popular but engaging and cultural.
It's very nice, and I was amazed by this movie. It was very surprising.
All right, the Lebanese movies they try to show you our traditions. How do we live, all right? But this movie was not as I thought. That's it. Our Lebanese movies, as I said, they show us our traditions, how we speak, how we communicate with each other.
The screening of the films further offered the audiences with the opportunity to exchange ideas, mingle and interact with others in a safe and fun environment.
Lebanese cinema has come a long way since its birth, as the audiences tonight are more than happy with what they have seen. From Cinescape Layla, I'm Gano Jaburi reporting to you for the English News.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News to see our daily news bulletins again, including all of our reports, or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MOI Kuwait News. That's all the news for now, but you can join us again for the news brief at 11 p.m. Before we end, here's a quick reminder of today's main headlines. A UN official says the UN honoring of His Highness the Emir as a humanitarian leader is in recognition of Kuwait's extraordinary partnerships with the organization. U.S. President Barack Obama says the core coalition is ready to join the U.S. in military action against militants in Iraq. Ukrainian and Russian presidents agree that a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine is largely holding. And the UN sent out a rescue call for international action on battling the Ebola virus as the death toll passes 2,000.